Welcome to the Bariatric Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kristen Lloyd, mindset mentor, somatic coach, and transformational guide for those on the path to true healing. Whether you've had weight loss surgery or on GLP-1s or simply seeking a new way forward with food and your body, this space is for you. This podcast is a mission to change the narrative, unlearning the patterns that no longer serve you, moving beyond quick fixes into deep, embodied healing, lasting mindset shifts, and true self-leadership. We are healing from the roots, rewiring the mind, regulating the body, and returning home to ourselves. We are here for growth rooted in honesty and self-trust because that, my friends, is the foundation of healing. So grab your cup of joe or your H2O and let's go. Hey friends, welcome back to the Bariatric Mindset Success Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Kristen Lloyd, and today is a very special episode because this week it's officially my 12-year Surgiversary. Actually, the day that this is airing, it will be the exact day of my Surgiversary. So 12 years since I had gastric sleeve surgery, and it was October 14th, 2013. And this is going live in 2025. So 12 years, 200 pounds down, and still evolving, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So in today's episode, I want to share with you the 12 lessons that I've learned in 12 years. And it's very difficult to pick just 12 because there are so many things that I've learned on this journey that I want to share. So I'm going to do my best to sum it up, the real, the unfiltered, behind the scenes truths that come after, the before and the after. So let's dive in. Probably could come up with on your own and know is that surgery is the catalyst. It's not the cure. And I would say that this is true for GLP-1s as well. And for me, surgery was most definitely the catalyst. I thought it was the last thing that I was ever going to have to do to lose weight. It was not. It was just kind of like the engine or the fire or the major tool that made me realize that I had to partner with my body. I had to partner with my life. I had to partner with food. And when I went into surgery, I literally thought, okay, this is going to fix me. This is going to fix my hunger. This is going to fix that insatiable hunger and urge and cravings. And it did give me a head start, but the surgery changed my stomach, right? The work that I did afterwards really is what changed me, mind, body, and soul. So the drilled down truth here is that healing comes from facing the things that we're running from, right? Healing comes from facing what we use to numb and our issues, our struggles, our grief, our avoidance, all of those things, not simply from changing what you eat, at least not in an emotional sense, right? So not just cutting out food or calories or making swaps, like we can all do that. We can all do those things, but what is lurking beneath the surface there, like the childhood trauma, right? Our adult trauma, the regret, the resentment, the choices we wish we made. Like, can we make peace with those things? Can we make peace with disappointment, with anger, with shame, with the thoughts that are in our head, right? Because those are the things a lot of times that are driving us to food. Now, are there folks that just have a biological, like they're eating clean? And it's not always about eating clean. Let me also say that, because I think, to be quite honest, there's only so clean that we can eat, right? I really do believe that. And I think that when we're too much on the other side of quote unquote eating clean, that can also look like disordered eating. So this isn't about that all or nothing paradigm of eating clean all the time or anything like that, because we do need balance. I don't usually share like, oh, I eat this and I eat that, because I know what I'm eating and it's not for show. It's for me. It's life, right? And different bodies respond to different foods. So that was another part of this process for me, was learning how my body responded to certain things. I work with people who really can't handle sugar. And that sometimes is one of those things that we've got to mourn and face, is how our body responds to certain things. One of the things that I had to face was how I didn't know I had anxiety. I didn't know I had ADHD. My head was kind of in the sand a little bit. I didn't know how to handle discomfort. I didn't know how to handle life issues or things that were extremely uncomfortable for me. And I had to work on growing myself to face those things, right? Because it wasn't just the food. And that is part of this journey. If any of you guys have read my second book, Release Your Regain, I talk in that book, and I say it in a lot of very public spaces. There was a huge aha moment for me when in my recovery period, I put a cheeseburger in a blender. I had issues with food, and I consider this a very much a recovery process where I make conscious choices about food on a day-to-day basis. Is this what I'm having? Are we okay with this choice? I ask this of myself and all of my parts. And when I make a choice, when I make a decision, it is not a decision that I'm lying to myself about. I know the positive and negative consequences of that decision. And that means I take ownership. I take responsibility of what I'm putting in my mouth. I'm awake and aware. And that was another part of this process. Was I used to dissociate with food because I didn't experience safety. I didn't have the ability to be safe in my body and hold discomfort. And so a lot of times I dissociated, which meant I disconnected from my body completely unconsciously. This was not a conscious thing. It was how my body kept me safe. This was very much a nervous system, a body protection process. So if you are someone who's dissociating and eating, the goal isn't to shame yourself. The goal is never to shame yourself, but the process of working to not emotionally eat through dissociation isn't to try to stop emotionally eating. The focus really needs to be on creating safety in your body and to start to practice connecting with your body in safe ways and stretching your capacity to handle discomfort. That would be the first step, really, is how can you expand your capacity to embrace discomfort before you start changing food? So a lot of times on this journey, people say, the honeymoon phase is, and it's really scary for a lot of people. Like, you've got to focus in the honeymoon phase. You got to lose all the weight. You got to focus and lose all the weight you can, because when the honeymoon phase ends, that's when the work begins. And no, when the honeymoon phase ends, that's when growth begins to some extent. But between, I don't know, the first 24 months, the weight comes off pretty easily and pretty quickly. And that can give people a false sense of security, which is why people talk about the honeymoon phase, and the honeymoon phase freaks people out. Now, I'm going to tell you that I lost weight after the honeymoon phase ended for me, because I was still holding on to emotional weight, because I was still living in my parents' house. I had moved from Seattle to Atlanta, and I was living in my parents' basement until we bought our house a couple years later. And while it was an opportunity of sorts. It was also very stressful. And it was a period that I went through a lot of death and rebirth emotionally because I had this thriving practice. I had so much going on. And then I move, I have this surgery. I was a new mom and I felt like I didn't really know my place in the world anymore. And then I didn't know what was going on with my body. So I share this because I really want you to look at yourself and look at after you've had this surgery, what else in your life may have gotten turned upside down. And for a lot of the women that I work with, and I know that men will be listening to this too. And so just look at the different parts of your life. I would say that women tend to be more the caretakers of their parents. That may not be unilaterally true. And I understand that. That's probably a lot more stereotypical. But a lot of the women that I work with are caretakers for their parents or sometimes even for their children. When you look at the transitions, it could be job transition, life transition. It could be a different type of health transition, right? What are the other things that are going on around the honeymoon? And another thing that people will say is, oh, I let bread back in, or I let sugar back in, or I let this or that back in. So you are absolutely in charge of your choices. And the surgeon said to me, you can have anything. I remember probably the couple days before surgery. My surgery was on a Monday, so I'm pretty sure my pre-op was on a Friday. And I remember asking him, can I have a pumpkin spice latte? I could not have it. Obviously, my surgery was in October. I loved pumpkin spice lattes. I had zero idea how much sugar was in them. And he said, you can have anything. Again, just focus on this process. So that whole season, I did not have a pumpkin spice latte. And I probably have had a few since then, probably in the early years. And then when I woke up really to saying, wait a minute, this has 50 something grams of sugar. I don't want that in my body. I don't want to create that craving because I had also learned that sugar begets sugar in the gut. And I wasn't specifically or particularly sensitive to sugar, but I didn't want to create that pattern or those urges. So I've really changed a lot of things in my life and in my plan because I've started to pay attention to over the last 12 years, what goes into things and what choices I make after I have certain things. I notice what happens in my body. I notice the responses and the reactions. So within the first 24 months, for some people, it's 36. For some people, it's less, right? Depending on how much you have to lose, the weight drops, the compliments roll in, everything feels like, this is great. It's fantastic. But the slowdown hits. And that's when I say that's when the growth begins, because that's when you start with the reality checks, right? That's not the failure. That's the real work. It's where you really can't be willy-nilly, right? And not to say that you're willy-nilly in the first 12 or 24 months, but you really need to drill down on your choices. When it gets easy, or when it is easy in the first 12 to 24 months, it can be easy in your mind to go, oh, well, I can have this, or maybe I can have this, or let's start with this. And the more that you do that, the more that you let back in. One of the biggest gifts that I think my surgery gave me was it scared the absolute shit out of me. It really did. Anytime I ate something and it pressed on my pouch or I overfilled it, some of you guys would have remember me saying this. My husband called it a Honda Civic because it cost as much as a Honda Civic because we did cash pay. We took the money from the sale of our house, which is also why we were living in my parents' basement. And we paid for my surgery. Insurance didn't cover it. So there were times where if I had too much because it was a party in my mouth, it was exciting for my brain, and I still hadn't realized how to regulate myself emotionally or how to stop or slow down with food. And that was very much a process. I was so terrified, yes, sometimes of regaining weight, but I was also terrified of hurting myself and hurting my stomach. And so there was a lot of presence. It almost forced me to be present and conscientious. And really, the switch that I guess flipped was taking care of myself so that I could be there for others. Because prior to surgery, my husband said to me, I don't want you to die. So there was this thought of, okay, I'm doing this for my health. I'm doing this for them. Ultimately, I'm doing this for me. I want to be healthy. I want to be there for my son. At the time, I wanted to have more children. So one of the things that I realized was I took it so serious. And I'm not saying that other people don't, but I think that when we let in that little voice that's like, well, let me just have a little bit of this, like, let me just have a little bit of that. It's not going to hurt anything. Like that little voice can be the one that one thing leads to another that leads to another. And that was the one thing that after the few oopses that I had where I had, let's say, overfilled my pouch, I got the foamies, I threw up, or I felt uncomfortably full, would be very cautious in slowing down. And that's what I would say is the real work, right? And then starting to build your lifestyle around not just eating differently, but being differently. And the old mindset that food was my everything had to shift. I remember there was a dinner, my parents and my family was having Chinese and I couldn't eat the rice. Not because I wasn't allowed, but because it didn't feel good in my body. And also it was too greasy. It was just too greasy. And so I remember being so angry, so frustrated, so mad. And I had to learn how to process that. Now, you guys may be like, you're a trained therapist. You went to school for this. Y'all, I did not know how to feel my feelings. Remember, I ate my feelings. I did not know how to feel my feelings. So I had to build a practice of trusting myself and learning how to self-soothe without food. So although this number 2 lesson is the honeymoon ends, the growth begins, there's been growth along this entire journey. And part of that has been trusting myself with food, trusting myself with emotions, and learning how to process them so that I'm not turning to food to soothe. The next lesson is that you can't hate yourself into healing. So I used to think shame would keep me disciplined. It didn't. It kept me stuck. And I see this exact same pattern showing up with my clients. They judge themselves and they're in a pattern of all or nothing thinking. They treat this lifestyle like it's a diet. This is not a diet. And when we put food on a pedestal and we put a lot of our faith in food, we're not putting faith in ourselves because we don't trust ourselves when there's this feeling that we can't control ourselves. And if you've been listening to me or reading my stuff for any length of time, this is not about control. It's not about controlling food. It's not about attempting to control yourself even. And even in the literature, there are conversations about self-control. And it's not about control because you can't bully yourself into health and you can't bully yourself or shame yourself into making different choices. And then because it's built on lies, right? We're to tell ourselves, I don't want the chocolate. Don't eat the chocolate. Don't desire the chocolate. We're like lying to ourselves. And when you're in the truth, when I embraced the truth, and it wasn't necessarily about chocolate, it was about all foods. If it was, I really want this. I really, really want this all the time. And when I started to cultivate a different pattern of self-talk that was more compassionate, not criticism, it helped me to build consistency because I utilized a different voice with myself. I was very honest and very real. And that voice sounds a lot like honoring and trusting and caring. And I don't know how else to say it other than it's a truth teller, right? If I am craving something, I can honor the craving and I can say, okay, what's showing up for you? Why is it that you want this? And why isn't going to necessarily help me find the answer, but it's going to cultivate a different conversation. It's going to help me understand myself. If I say, I want this, I really, really want this. And if I'm in an emotional eating pattern, I can say, I know you want this. I know you want this. It's just not time to have it right now. And sometimes I use a voice that I would use with my child or with someone that I love. I know you want this. It's not the time to have it right now. You can have it tomorrow. You can have it later. You can have it at lunch. And it's just not the time. And I'll do these check-ins with myself over and over and over. And because I trust myself, because I trust my choices, because I trust my feedback, it's not a limiting voice. It's not a shaming voice. It's not a restrictive voice. And it's not one that I can give you rules on, right? So that's another thing that a lot of people have on this journey is rules, which I don't have. I literally rely on self-trust. And I have developed from that point of self-hatred, it has become self-acceptance, self-honoring, and then self-love. So when I say rules, what I mean is I can't tell you, oh, I say no, and then I say yes, or there are so many times that I say no before I say yes. Absolutely not. There are no rules like that. So there are no rules that I can share because it's based on me trusting myself. And that is something that is going to look different for each individual person. And that's because this journey really does need to be personalized. There is no one size fits all. The one thing I can say, again, for this number 3 lesson is that hating yourself into thinness isn't going to work. Attempting to punish or shame yourself or judge yourself into a smaller body is not going to last. Restricting food under the premise of self-control isn't going to get you to where you want to go. And this is why it's not so much you have to love yourself, which it sounds like BS, because you don't have to do anything. You don't have to love yourself to get thin. I'm going to say that right now. You do not have to like yourself or love yourself. However, accepting who you are and the body that you're in, it may terrify you because a lot of people think, and I thought this too, if I accept myself, then there's no way that I could keep my word, because if I accept myself, then I would let myself do whatever I wanted. And because I don't trust myself, I would let myself get away with everything or anything. And then I would just be a big fat slob. See the judgment there? Like there was so much judgment. And the opposite was true. The absolute opposite. There was no forced love. There was no forced caring. It was an honoring and a humbling of learning how to care for myself in a different way. And that care came from the very basic premise that I'm a human being. I am deserving and worthy of love, period. I don't have to wait until I'm thin to be worthy of it. And likewise, I don't have to love myself first to live in a smaller body. It was all at the same time. How can I accept where I am and accept that I'm going to mess up, I'm going to make mistakes, that there are times I'm going to judge myself, I'm going to judge others, I'm going to feel bad, I'm going to want food. Can I give myself grace and honor all of those feelings that emerge and hold space for that version of me? Sometimes I would picture a little girl. Can I hold space for that version of me that little girl that is so emotionally hungry. What does she want? She wants acceptance. She wants love. She wants acknowledgement. She wants to be seen. She wants to be heard. She wants to be told that she's doing okay. She wants to be told that she's welcome, that she belongs. So when I started to see myself in almost like childlike form, just like you would see a little kid in the grocery store that's like, I want that. You can't help but to see them through the eyes of love. You can't help to see them through their very young desires. So what if our desires were young? What if our desires were playful? And that doesn't mean we give in to those desires. Sometimes we need to learn how to parent ourselves, which is what I have learned to do with myself. I kind of consider it a reparenting process that has developed into a form of self-love and nurturing that didn't start by loving my adult self. It started by loving my child self. And it was through that compassion, not criticism, that helped me to build that consistency. Likewise, number 4 lesson, emotional eating doesn't just disappear. It evolves, right? Because food isn't just food. It's comfort, control, connection, sometimes escape, just like I was talking about a little while ago. And surgery doesn't erase the emotional hunger or the head hunger or any of the other types of food noise that you guys may have heard me talk about as of late. It exposes it. Right? So what you don't face emotionally will eventually show up behaviorally. It will eventually show up because it pokes holes, right? So that emotional eating doesn't disappear. We've got to address those unmet needs. So if we're not being seen, if we're not being heard, if we're in a sucky relationship, if you're in a soul-sucking job, if you're miserable in your life, and sometimes it can come from your thoughts. It may not be your actual external life, but it may be your inner critic. It may be cognitive dissonance, which is basically a fancy word for how things are not in alignment psychologically, right? And how they show up materially, like in either behavioral form or what's kind of manifested in your life, right? So we may have opinions and feelings about things, and that's what we've got to address is, what are you eating about? Is it stress? Is it anxiety? Is it depression? Is it frustration? Is it grief? Is it loss? Are they parts of your life where you didn't trust yourself? You didn't take action. You didn't believe in yourself, right? What shows up? And so that emotional eating, it's not something to be quote unquote fixed. It's definitely something to be healed. And healing is a process and a practice, just like everything else. So this whole process isn't about taking away the food or cutting out your stomach or even giving yourself a GLP-1. All of those things can be helpful. And you also need to layer in the mental, emotional, and physiological work, all of the healing, right? I say work, and I also mean healing. So the mental, emotional, and physiological healing is that evolution, because you can be on a GLP-1. And this came up recently, actually, with 3 different clients, not just one, but 3 different clients who were all on GLP-1s. And they have said, yes, I'm on this medication and it helps me, and it's giving me an opportunity to work on the emotional stuff so that I can see it a lot more clearly. And they all said this differently in their own ways. But one who's been on a GLP-1 for a while, and she has done well with her weight loss, she has recognized that there are times where she's absolutely not physically hungry and she still wants to eat. She knows it's emotional hunger. She knows it's that mental, emotional hunger because there are some things in her life that she's got to work on. And another person said that she hasn't addressed discomfort. She's avoided it. And she knows that her GLP-1 is working whether it's time for her, like she's been able to now isolate as a result of the medication. She's been able to isolate, oh, here's where that emotional hunger is stemming from. So this is a reminder. I've seen people online say, oh, well, this quiet's food noise. Well, if it's biological, yeah, that makes sense. But if it's emotional, if it's somatic, if it's environmental, it may not shut down some of these other forms of food noise. So same thing with surgery. I thought surgery was the end. It was not. It was the beginning. And so this is where the surgery and the medication, and there are different forms of medication. GLP-1 just happens to be the most recent one, but there are other medications and appetite suppressants that bariatric patients use that can help you to quiet the, let's say, that physiological hunger, or help you to separate out what is my emotional state, or what is showing up in my body that makes me feel unsafe, that has me turning to food to soothe. So 5, your nervous system is part of this journey. If you do not feel safe in your body, you'll always go back to survival mode. And that means that you may be reaching to food to soothe or to calm yourself when your body feels unsafe. When I say your body, I literally mean felt sense. Your body, your nervous system is protective. Okay, that's something that is important for us to remember. Our nervous system hardwires us for fear, right? Which is why anxiety is a thing. Because our brains and our bodies are always working together to protect us. We are constantly looking out for fear. So we're hardwired for fear. We're not hardwired for happiness. Okay? Like if you've never heard me say that before, I'm going to say it again. Your body, your nervous system is hardwired for fear. It's not hardwired for happiness, because our bodies are innately trying to protect us and keep us alive. So for me, learning nervous system regulation, grounding, breathing, slowing down, orienting, resource states changed everything, because it's allowed me to heal my relationship with stress. And this was just as important as healing my relationship with food, because what I had realized was I was in this chronic stress state that I had become addicted to the stress state. I had become addicted to the stress response. Some people might even call it the trauma response. And as a result, I would look for food as a way to soothe that stress response. And that was the pattern. Stress myself out, have high anxiety, dissociate, use food to soothe. Stress myself out, overwork, and then look for food. And that is something that in our society, which is very go, there's not much time for slowing down. And yet we need that space. We need that slowdown away from devices, away from this constant chatter, away from being inundated. There is a saying somewhere that your quote unquote diet, I hate that word diet, but I'm just going to use it because it's what's used in this, I don't know, meme or saying or whatever. It's your diet is not only what you eat, it's what you watch, it's what you listen to, it's what you surround yourself with, it's what you let in your mind, it's what you read, right? So that's something that's important, is if you're someone who is constantly watching like true crime or horror or thrillers or something, it's not a judgment. It's how is that impacting your nervous system? How is that getting a rise out of you? And that may be something that you like and it's thrilling for some folks, but how frequently are you turning to food? That is just a simple example. But if you're also someone who's consuming a lot of content, you're consuming a lot of information, and you have no space to yourself, that let's say you go to work, you come home, you consume whatever, television, whatever it is that you're consuming, where's the open space for you to just be, for your brain to just be? And a lot of times we refer to, oh, well, I'm bored. I would ask you very bluntly, very clearly, why is it that you always have to be entertained? And if my 12 years ago self would have felt the same thing. Like, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored. But now having space has been such a gift because having that space has given me the chance to process, to also recognize what my thought patterns are, to recognize that a lot of times, and I'm going to say this, and some of you are going to realize, holy crap, that's me. Part of the reason you're quote unquote bored, or some of it is boredom, but some of it is that you don't want to be alone with your thoughts because you haven't learned how to manage your thoughts. You haven't learned how to redirect your thoughts. So when the thoughts come in, your thoughts may be unkind. They may be judgmental. They may be highly critical. They may be like mine were, which were a movie screen playing of your most horrendous, embarrassing moments that happened when, you were 10 or 11 or whatever. And that throws you into a nervous system state. So by consuming television, radio, by having something always on in the background, that voice in your head isn't necessarily chiming in. And what can be hugely beneficial when you start to pay attention to that voice that is in your head is, what is it saying? Is it kind? Is it unkind? Is it hateful? Is it judgmental of other people, not just yourself? Because a judgmental, hateful, critical voice of others is judgmental and hateful and critical of yourself. So it doesn't have limitations. It doesn't stop at just you. And you may think kindly of other people, but then you may also feel jealous or envious or have other feelings, and then you feel bad for having those feelings. Okay, interesting. Well, why does that show up? That shows up because that person or those people or that situation, they're freer than you. You wish you could do those things. You either don't have the courage or the bravery or the guts to do those things, not because you can't, you could, but because your mind has limited you. Your mind has told you that you're not capable. Your mind has told you that's not possible for you because the judgment, the criticism, the inner critic tells you that's not for you. So that inner critic keeps you bound. And because you're not paying attention to it, and I recognize it, there are some people, I don't want to listen to the inner critic. It's so horrible. Yes. But how do you change it if you don't listen to it? How will you be able to say, nope, we're not believing that? How do you give rise to a different voice, a compassionate voice, a loving voice, a kind voice, an encouraging voice, if you shut down all the voices? And if you are tuning in to entertainment, which is an escape, you're not recalibrating your inner voice or your nervous system, you're avoiding. So in a lot of ways, entertainment is another form of avoidance. It's another way of consuming. It may not be food, but it's another way to avoid dealing with the voice in your head, what's showing up in your life, unlived actions, unlived choices, right? Risks that were not taken, right? So that's what's important. So emotional eating doesn't just disappear. It evolves. Like I said, nervous system is part of the journey, right? Those two kind of, although they're very different, they're woven in to what I was just sharing about self-talk. So moving on to number 6, maintenance isn't sexy. It's sacred. So maintenance, life doesn't trend. On this journey, what I see is people who are really excited about before and after pictures and what I like to call transformation porn. Honestly, I hate it, but it's just part of what people want to see on this journey. They want to see your before and your after, right? I personally don't think there's an after because we're continuing to live and maintenance continues on. Now, in maintenance, the other thing I'm going to say is that you may go up a little, you may go down, you may stay where you are within about 5 pounds, 10 pounds. Maintenance, I'm going to say it again, isn't sexy, but it is so sacred. It is so important. It's where you learn balance, rhythm, grace. It's where you learn to live with your body and not against it. And it's a place where wisdom replaces obsession. I'm going to say that again. It's a place where wisdom replaces obsession. This is so important because the wisdom of your body is going to tell you, yeah, I'm not really hungry today. And I was having a conversation with a colleague probably 6 to 8 months ago, and also with a client. I think I've shared this with clients too. Like there are days where I'm not really hungry. And if I look at my tracking and I use my Fitness Pal, it'll say that I'm very low, let's say, on my quote unquote caloric needs. I don't count calories. That's not how I live, but I do track for the sake of where am I on any given day, just to pay attention. And there are days that I may be high. There are days that I may be low. And I have over time developed more of an intuitive eating type practice, but it did not come overnight. And it came as a result of nervous system regulation and interoception and listening to my body and learning my body and all of those things. So it was not something I attempted to practice. It was a byproduct of the check-ins and the paying attention and the practice of literally asking, okay, where's my protein? What am I doing for myself today? How am I moving? Like all of the basics. It just ended up becoming an evolution of that for me. But maintenance isn't escaping the day-to-day. It's practicing and living authentically your day-to-day. And it's that continuing to check in with yourself. That's what makes this a lifestyle and not a diet. That's what makes this a lifestyle. But there's so much about before and after. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm doing the same thing I do every day. The one thing I will share is that when I started in perimenopause, and nothing in my day-to-day necessarily changed except I was exhausted. I couldn't sleep at night. And I knew I needed to get some medical support. I remember telling my team, I'm not eating differently. I'm still prioritizing protein. I don't have any weird cravings. I did notice I was having more coffee than usual. And that was something that I noticed and just said, ooh, you know what? I'm really, really tired. I'm not sleeping. And that was when I started to get some medical tests and realized, oh, hey, you're in perimenopause. There was some weight gain that I experienced during this time. But again, having practiced that body, not even kindness, but self-trust, I had said, hey, we're going to figure this out. This is me and my body, right? We're going to figure this out. And we're going to get stronger, but we've also got to take this one step at a time and not overdo it. We're not going to overtrain. We're not going to limit calories. We're just going to pay attention to what's showing up on each and every day. And I think that has created even a better partnership between myself and my body because it's based on love and trust and kind of this, I've got your back. Not, I'm going to throw you under the bus. And I think that's where a lot of people are, is that when they're struggling, is they're willing to throw their body under the bus for thinness. And I used to be like that, so I know it. And the shift is, I care about you. I want to help you. I want to support you. Yes, I want for us, mind-body connection, right? To be better, to be stronger. And in order to do that, I need to build this strong connection with you and show you that I care about you by acting in your own best interest. So a lot of the things that I've done are acted in my own best interest. And that shifts to like number 7, which is the scale doesn't tell the whole story. Right? I've lived every version of the scale cycle, up, down, stuck, freaked out, in a stall. The scale tells you nothing about healing, strength, or self-worth. The real data is how you feel, how you move, and how you talk to yourself when the number isn't what you want it to be. Are you judging? Are you restricting? Are you shaming yourself because the number's up? Are you actually looking at, okay, what's contributing to this number? Now, when I was at the beginning of my perimenopause journey and the scale was up, I didn't know other than, okay, this is hormones, but what can I do? So there was a sense of powerlessness. And so I had to lean into my faith that I would figure it out. But figuring it out did not mean working myself out into oblivion or engaging in disordered eating behaviors or restricting. It was, okay, let's track a little to see what the patterns with food are. It was curiosity. It was curiosity over judgment. It was, let's get some answers. Let's create not only this partnership with the body, but let's get some data, some other data, medical data, right? And so that's important for you to look at is if you're married to the scale or if you're allowing the scale to determine your happiness, you're in for a wild ride and not a good one. So it's not just about chunking the scale. It's about recognizing that body composition is a much more definitive indicator of health and wellness, but also, are you doing what your body needs? Are you strength training? Are you moving? How are your moods? Why is it that your body's number on that scale is going to determine your happiness? What else in your life are you giving so much power to the scale for? What else in your life has gone sour, or what else has created this isolationist type thinking? And what has created this pattern of deriving your worth from that? Now, I know it could be diet culture, it could be society, it could be a partner, or that you're dating again. It could be a lot of the shallowness of life. And what would it look like if you were to accept yourself where you are in this moment and work towards change, right? So there is a saying or a philosophy within dialectical behavior therapy, which is created by Marsha Linehan. And it is this dialectic philosophy of acceptance and change, accepting where you are and also seeing that you also need to change. Acceptance isn't, I like it, I love it, and I'm going to stay here. Acceptance is, this is where I am, right? Like I'm on 5th Street. That's something that I share with my clients a lot. Like I'm on 5th Street and I want to get to 12th Street. So you can be where you are and also want to be somewhere else. It doesn't negate that you are where you are. So if you're at 180 and you want to get to 160, can you accept that you're at 180? Can you accept that that's where you are and that where you want to go is, 20 pounds from there? But also, are you wanting to lose 20 pounds of fat? Or are you willing to put on some muscle that may increase that scale weight when in partnership with your body so that you can lose fat? Because losing weight implies literally just weight. It doesn't imply fat. And that's something that's important to recognize. So the next one, 8, you'll outgrow old versions of yourself. So on this journey, I didn't realize how much I would change emotionally, mentally, and I knew I would change physically. But the other thing that I see is that a lot of people want to change their bodies, but they haven't changed who they are at the core, and they haven't changed their behaviors. So another part of this, number 8, you'll outgrow versions of yourself, and some people won't come with you. And this is tough because when you start to heal, you might make others uncomfortable, especially if they benefited from you living in a larger body or you playing small in your life. You might have made other people feel comfortable or better about themselves if you were a people pleaser, right? Or if you were someone who said yes to everything. But you're not meant to shrink who you are on the inside. So as your body gets smaller, right? As your body shrinks, your inside, so to speak, like who you are as a person tends to expand. Opportunities expand. Your mindset hopefully expands. Your heart, your life, your will to live expands. And so your body may be shrinking, right? But your boundaries your voice really need to expand, right? So you need to have better boundaries for yourself. You're not going to say yes to everything anymore. And so there will be people who are used to taking advantage of you. And are you going to continue to let that happen? And if and when you do, if you are to, what happens is the emotional eating can come back, because when you say yes to things that aren't in alignment with who you really are, you feel bad because you're self-abandoning or self-betraying. And as a result, you're emotionally eating because it does feel like a betrayal, because you're saying yes to something you really want to say no to. And so if you're not outgrowing old versions of you, this is why I do so much identity work in my practice, is I ask people, what is it that you want? Who is it that you want to become? And sometimes you've been so locked into, that saying, who were you before the world told you who to be? You're so locked into this pattern of who the world told you who to be, and you don't know how to get out of that. And there's so much fear that your body, you have this surgery or you're on a medication, and if nothing else changes, it's very difficult to keep your body small, right? Because if you're not changing with your body, you will end up right back where you started, because the version of you that is shedding this weight is the version of you who isn't carrying emotional or mental weight either. So the weight that you're shedding isn't just physical weight. It's also the weight of other people's opinions. It's the weight of your choices. It's the weight of regret or sadness. And you can't just make an external release without also releasing the internal. And if you're not brave enough or courageous enough to make those changes, to draw that line in the sand for yourself, it's going to look different for every single person. Then at some point, the emotional eating, it will return, because you're not being honest and authentic and in integrity with yourself. You're just not. And only you know what that means. I know I'm speaking vague here. I know what that means for me. But for you, for each individual person, it may be overspending. It may be overworking. It may be a crappy relationship. It may be putting a family member in their place. It may be facing an abuser. It may be saying no to a pattern. It may also be working on or working through a family of addiction. It may be transfer addiction in our community is big, because once again, are we dealing with the underlying emotional pain, or are we attempting to pretend it doesn't exist? So when you outgrow that old version of yourself, there will be some people that are left behind, because are they valuing the true you, or are they only valuing what they could get from you? And if you're different, and when people say you've changed, they may say it to you in a way that hurts. And one of the ways that may be important for you to see it is, yes, I have, as a compliment. And that's another thing, is accepting compliments can be difficult if you don't see yourself through the eyes of love, if you don't see yourself in a way that you always have been. So it's not solely, oh, am I better now that I've lost the weight? Am I more acceptable? We can even be angry about that. Why is it I'm just now seen now that I've lost the weight? We can be upset about that because we may not have been seen before. But what's really important is to recognize that you've always been worthy of love. You've always been enough, even when you or others didn't see it. The thing is, are you claiming it, and are you acting, and are you behaving as a person who owns their power, and as a person who cares for themselves and honors their boundaries and respects their time? Or are you overcompensating or apologizing for your body, or for what other people don't deem appropriate or don't deem valuable? You've always been valuable. But a lot of times for those of us living in larger bodies, we didn't value ourselves because society told us we weren't valuable. And when we see the shift, if we don't start acting as though we're valuable, right, whether we've gotten a goal or not, then we're still going to be treated the same. How are we treating ourselves differently? It's not just the outside transformation, it's the inside transformation. And that kind of leads me to number 9, which is identity reinvention is the real transformation. If you don't change your self-concept, which is what I was saying a little while ago, old habits creep back because your habits will always follow who you believe you are. At some point, you have to decide, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not that person who brings home a feast on Friday night and gorges themselves. I'm not that person who has 2 dinners. I'm not that person who lies about food. I'm not that person who has to have this or that. I'm not that person who emotionally eats. I'm not that person who fantasizes about food all day long because of an unlived life, because you're not happy with the choices that you've made. And this comes back to what are the choices that you are making for yourself? And you can always pivot and change gears. So this is an opportunity. Identity reinvention can happen at any age. It doesn't matter if you're 31, 41, 71, right? Now, the identity reinvention is where you start acting like the person you're becoming. And this means if you're a healthy, vibrant individual, how does that person act? So I personally am not a runner, so I'm not going to run, right? But I am someone who stays active. And as a result, I find different ways in my life to be active and to stay active. And so my identity reflects my actions. My identity reflects the type of food I eat. My identity reflects the behaviors that I'm choosing, the type of sleep that I get, and the values and what's important in my life. Similar for you, what does your identity say about you? Is the identity that you're, that you work and then you're a couch potato? I'm giving an example. When you look at your own identity, who is it that you want to be? And so when there is an identity reinvention, there are no shoulds. You have the opportunity to decide who you want to be. Are you living in wellness? Are you living in illness? Are you someone who overcomes obstacles, or are you someone who succumbs to them? Are you someone who is a victim of circumstance? Or are you someone who rises up and accepts the challenge and overcomes the obstacles? That's what's important. Is there will always be ups and downs in life, and we don't like them. We don't have to like them. There will be challenges in life. Do you let those challenges mow you down, or are you someone who says, nope, that's not happening. I'm going to overcome this. I'm going to get past this. I'm going to get through this. And that determines your success. It doesn't mean it wouldn't be hard, right? There are situations that are hard. And when you work through them, that's where you become more resilient. That's where you become stronger because of what you go through. There's that saying, you grow through what you go through, right? So number 10, we're almost there, is that relapse isn't failure, it's feedback. And similar to what I was just sharing about the identity reinvention, is that setbacks don't mean that you've lost progress. Setbacks are meant to teach you. A lot of times those challenges are meant to make you stronger. And while none of us are lining up for challenges, I'm certainly not, they can help us to grow. And sometimes they mean that you're being asked to slow down. Sometimes challenges come because you need to slow down. And sometimes challenges or relapse happen so that you can check in with, wait a minute, what's really important right now? Or where do I need to create change in my life? Where do I need to pivot? Where do I need to check in? Relapse isn't failure. It's an opportunity for you to pivot. It's an opportunity for growth, and it's an opportunity to check in. It's an opportunity. So even in my own example, both of perimenopause and then several years ago when I had several miscarriages and had regain, it wasn't a shaming point, it was an opportunity of, okay, now it's time for me to pivot, game on. If you allow these situations to become, or what you consider a failure, or if you consider yourself a failure, you're claiming failure. Stop claiming failure. If that situation has come into your life, into your mind, into your process, it's come to strengthen you. And it could be family issues, it could be life issues, it could be career, it could be financial, it could be a lot of things. So it's giving you an opportunity to say, okay, what do I value? What's important to me right now? And that's where you have an opportunity to pivot and say, wait a minute, not so much what am I made of, but how do I want to take charge of this situation? And again, this comes back to you knowing your head and you being in your own head, you being able to process your thoughts and emotions and to say what's important to me. But remember when I said way back when, in one of the earlier lessons, if you're just consuming content, entertainment, and you don't know how to redirect your thoughts or redirect your belief systems, your thoughts and experiences, your self-talk about yourself, then you may be in a cycle of judgment, criticism, and frustration. And this is why you may be interpreting relapse as failure, because that could be it is very much a diet mentality and coming from diet culture, that you're creating meaning from that relapse. You're equating relapse with failure because that's what either the media or diet culture has told you that it means. You have not said, okay, this is a situation, I'm going to get past this. You haven't created your own meaning. You've solely bought in to the meaning that was created for you. So as a reminder, setbacks don't mean you've lost progress, right? It's about slowing down, listening, paying attention, creating your own meaning. What's showing up for me right now? What am I going through? How can I work through it? What are my values? What are my choices in this situation? What am I choosing, right? Because if you are not in the driver's seat of your process, if you're in the back seat or you're not even driving, you can get into where, oh, well, I've been eating French fries every day for the last 3 weeks. You become on an autopilot that may not be serving you, and then you're judging yourself, right? So you need to be the one making the conscious choices. And how you do that is by getting in your head, by getting in your body, by partnering with your body, and by living from your values and from what you say you want. And that's what helps to make this process and practice easier, is that you start living according to how you want to live every day. And it's really about being proactive more than reactive. So anytime there's regain, right? Any regain, every emotional spiral, every stuck season has something to teach you if you're willing to learn and to be curious instead of shame yourself, right? That's what's important. That's what's important. What meaning have you created? What meaning are you giving to this situation? And how can it be helping you to grow, to learn and evolve? Because you may be learning new skills and new practices that help you to elevate to get to the next level, right? So if you've ever played a video game, this is going to sound silly, but there's different skills, right? Or it's not just a video game, but even life. There's different skills that we need. You don't start any type of challenge or game and start off at like level 25. You start off at the beginning and you gain skills and you get better. And then you get other skills, and then you get other skills, and you get other skills. And that's how you advance. Why would this journey be any different? So a lot of folks are trying to bypass skills, and then they shame themselves for not getting it, right? But who are you? You've also got to upgrade that identity, which I talked about a little while ago, in order to opt in to the habits that go with that identity. And so if you're trying to be that same old person with new behaviors, it's going to create a conflict and you're going to feel out of alignment. So one of the things that can be really important is to be in alignment with who you are. And that's where I'm the kind of person who, follow through on these things easily, and it becomes easy. It feels easy because it's just part of who you are. It's not something extra. It's not something you have to do or something that you even think about, because when it's part of who you are, when it's part of your identity, when you become someone who is living a healthy life, when you're someone who is living from a place of wellness, of nurturing themselves and caring about themselves and others, you automatically start thinking and the behaviors follow. And so again, relapse or even backpedaling isn't failure, it's feedback. And what it's up to you to determine, what is this teaching me? Be curious. So the last two. So 11, peace is the new goal weight. Peace with food, peace with your reflection, peace with your body image, peace with the process. Process over outcome. You want to get there, but like I said recently in an Instagram post, there is no there. There is no there. There is no end, because you will continue this journey for as long as you live. You will continue to grow and evolve. And this isn't just about weight loss or weight maintenance. This is about your health, right? So you'll reach a point where calm feels better than control, where freedom feels better than thinness. And that's when you know you're living the lifestyle, not chasing an illusion, right? So this is a lifestyle, right? So it's important that you recognize that if you're still chasing an illusion, it's like a mirage. It's going to go away at some point, and then you're going to be disappointed. And if you're someone who's addicted to dieting or addicted to the thrill of weight loss, explore that. Explore that, because it's more than just about the body. It's about something else underneath that's a lot more sinister. And it may have to do with feeling that you don't belong. It may have to do with other types of addictive tendencies, right? They may not be an addiction, but they may be these tendencies that are related to that anxiety and that fear response. And so peace of mind, again, peace with food, peace with your reflection, really nurturing yourself, body, mind, and soul, is what I have learned in the last 12 years is so much more important to me. And that how I do that is through the practice, through the process, through the honoring of myself. And that, yes, chocolate cake or chips or any of those things, they're food, but they don't have power over me because I don't turn my power over to them. My power is inside me, and it doesn't go away because the scale changes. It's where I am the source of my truth, not the scale, not what other people think of me. And that's a huge shift. And that did not come overnight. And how that comes is with that acceptance and change. Can I accept where I am? Can I also know that this is temporary and it will change through my choices, through my process, through consistency, through the day in, the day out, not just of my bariatric basics, but processing emotions, listening to my self-talk, courage, challenging myself to grow. All of those things are part of this process. This isn't just about protein and water. It's so much more. And then the last one is gratitude changes the frequency of your entire journey. So for me, when I look back, I'm not just grateful for the weight loss. I'm grateful for every lesson that came with it, even when it was hard, every setback, every struggle, every truth that made me dig deeper. Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring the hard things. It means remembering how far you've come and how much strength it took to get to where I am now. And I also know that where I am now is just a moment of time. It's just a moment in time, and I am going to continue to grow and evolve and strengthen myself and stretch myself. And this is not the end. This is not the end. It's just another level or layer on the journey. And that's the thing that I want to share is it doesn't matter if you're 3 weeks out, 3 months out, if you're pre-op, if you're 20 years out, there's still work to be done. There's still healing to be done on this journey. And it's not, oh crap, I still have healing to do. No, because we're all human and we all have things that will come up for us to grow beyond, to grow through, to evolve. And if we have the attitude, oh no, I'm gaining weight, or if we have the attitude, I hate this, why do I have to do this, right? Then we haven't embraced that life has the ebbs and flows, life has the ups and downs. And what we have the power to create and cultivate is to prepare for the downs as much as we can. They sometimes come out of left field. To give ourselves grace when things are a struggle, to embrace with gratitude and passion and love what we have been able to accomplish, to stretch ourselves, to have the courage to do things that scare the absolute shit out of us, because those are the situations that grow us. Those are the situations that evolve us, that make us go, I did that. Did I do that? Whoa, I did that. And it's our bravery and our courage and our embracing of ourselves to say, that was hard and I did it. And I tried. I wasn't sure I could do it and I did it. I'm trying new things. I'm doing new things. Gratitude isn't just about success. Gratitude can be about trying. Gratitude can be about showing up. Gratitude can be about showing up for yourself. Gratitude can be believing in yourself enough to get this far and to say, oh, well, this person did it, so I can do it. Gratitude can also be thank you for the opportunity to be where I'm at. Gratitude can be thank you that I can heal my body. Thank you that I've overcome so much and I have more to do. Thank you, body, for partnering with me. Thank you, body, for teaching me. Thank you, body, for helping me to see myself in a new way. It can be gratitude, not just for the journey, but gratitude for your body, gratitude for the partnership with your body, and gratitude so that you can see yourself in a whole new light, hopefully from a place of love and kindness and enoughness. So 12 years ago, I was scared. I was lost. I was ready for a miracle. I thought surgery would be that miracle, it'd be the last thing. And what I found was so much more than a smaller body. I found a stronger self. I developed that stronger self. And if there's one truth to leave you with, it's this. And you've heard me say it before. There's no there. There's no end. This is a practice. It's a process. It's a lifetime becoming. So if you're listening to this and you're in the messy middle, keep going. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be in your journey. You are the hero of your journey. You are the protagonist of your story. You are the hero. You are the main character. Okay. And you're in process and you are in your progress, right? So if we were to take this and even look at your own journey as a hero's journey, which I definitely see how I have fought my own inner demons and overcome, climbed mountains metaphorically and all of those things. So have you, or so will you. And there's no one else coming to save you, right? You are the hero. You are the hero, and this journey will call upon you and ask you what you're made of, not solely for weight loss, but for your evolution, for your becoming, for so much more than your body. It will challenge you to feel deeply. It will challenge you to rise above, to live in ways that you'd never thought possible, because this journey will expand you. It will transform you, not only physically, but emotionally and mentally. And where you may have hidden or protected yourself with food, this journey will call upon you to leave those old coping mechanisms behind. And it will call upon you to heal. It will call upon you evolve yourself. This journey and this process will call on you to become the truest version of you. And you may have thought, oh, my body, my weight. And what it really does is it peels back the layers, not only around body and weight, but it shows you how strong you really are when you shift your coping, when you transform internally as well as externally and become the person that you've wanted to become. This journey should make you proud of yourself by facing all of the things that have been so difficult. And it is possible. You're possible. And I hope that these lessons, while rather deep, give you some hope, some perspective, and some insight that this is so much more than about what you're eating or your bariatric basics. It's very much about how you walk in the world and who you are. And I hope these lessons have helped you and supported you. So if this episode has hit home for you, share it with a friend who needs to hear it today, bariatric friend on GLP-1. And if you want some more deep dives into mindset, embodiment, and emotional healing after your weight loss surgery or while on a GLP-1, I would love for you to join us inside my free Facebook group, the Bariatric Mindset Mavens. I will link all the information in the show notes. And as we're setting up for the holiday season, I have a special on my Survive the Holidays Masterclass. I will put that in the show notes as well. I wish you a blessed October. Here's to 12 years. And thank you for sharing in this journey with me. I wouldn't be here without my absolute obsession of sharing all that I've learned with others. So I'm grateful that you're here listening to this. Here's to 12 years. It's been raw. It's been glorious. It's been a journey. And to the next chapter of this evolution, healing, and self-mastery. I will see you in the next episode, and thank you for celebrating my 12-year Surgiversary with me. Lots of love, everybody, and see you next time. Mwah. Bye.